The following is a production of Texas Lutheran University. For more information, please visit tlu.edu.
Today's speaker is Marvin Rush, which Marvin lives here in Seguin. His business, Rush Enterprises, is operated out of New Braunfels. Marvin is the chairman of the board. I think he's done virtually every job that could ever have been done in that business and a whole bunch of other businesses. When I first sat down with Marvin, I don't know if my amazement showed, but I truly was in awe of the man as he told me bits and pieces of his life story, much of which he's going to share with you today. But to give you just a tidbit of it, Marvin started working in his father's bus station at age 6. I was doing things with diapers at age 6. By age 10, he had gone to a bank, borrowed money to start his first business venture. At age 16, he became a motor vehicle dealer. That tells you something about the level of motivation and the engine inside of Marvin Rush. Marvin didn't know I was going to say this, but educationally, he's got a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and a PhD from the School of Hard Knocks. He is going to share with you his story about that, and I think it's nothing short of amazing in terms of a man whose determination and goals will allow him to overcome virtually anything. So that said, please help me welcome Marvin Rush, a man who epitomizes the American success story.
Well, good afternoon. I've given this speech a number of times, but it's been about a year, so I may stumble through some of these. I try not to, but I try to ad-lib a lot of it. But I'd like to share with you today the things that I have learned along the way that have helped me to succeed. I've come to call this speech Marvin Rush's School of Hard Knocks and a few easy lessons, and a few not so easy ones. I'd also like to talk to you about what makes a company like Rush Enterprises successful. Before I begin, I believe there are 3 key factors that brought me to where I am today. First was setting lifetime goals for myself at an early age. I believe that if you do not set goals for yourself, you have nothing to reach for. I was 20 when I set the following goals. Be a General Motors dealer, have a Cadillac dealership, own a bank, take a company public, and do $1 billion a year annually in sales. Second is having an intricate knowledge of my business. And third, probably the most important thing, is hiring the best people I could to achieve my goals. Textbooks teach many things, but sometimes life experience is a better instructor. I believe a good true life story makes for a long-lasting impression. The very first place to start a story is at the beginning. I was born in Houston, Texas in 1938. I'll be 75 years old pretty soon. And from the time I was very young, I always wanted to work. My father was a bus driver and eventually had 2 city bus companies operating in Houston. This was before integration, so one was predominantly all white and the other was all blacks. Lesson 1, there was money to be made. At age 6, I got a job sweeping floors at my father's downtown bus station. The black bus line ran right in front of my house. So I rode the bus on a pass in the afternoon to and from work. And I swept the floor downtown and cleaned up the one bus station. He had 2 locations, one bus station, that was for the white bus company. The black bus company was only one route, so he didn't have a bus station for it. During those years, I rode with my dad on Saturdays, because on Saturdays he visited all 3 of his locations and checking out what's going on, so I rode with him every day. At the black bus station, there was a Coke machine. I bugged my dad every week to let them buy it. Finally, one day, my dad said, "Okay, son." And he said, "You can buy that machine and all the supplies for $50. Well, that was 1948. I said, "Dad, I don't have $50. I might have $12 or $15 saved, but I don't have $50. He said, "Well, I'll tell you what you do when you get off work, get off school Monday afternoon. You get off out at 3. The bank closes. The Reagan State Bank's about a block from your house. You go down to Reagan State Bank and knock on the back door, and they'll let you in, and you ask for Mr. Jones." And I did. And Mr. Jones loaned me $50. And I had my first Coke machine in his bus station. My first enterprise was born. I'll tell you, I didn't know that my dad owned part of the bank. By 1950, I'd paid off that loan and owned 2 more Coke machines, one in each one of the 3 bus stations. I was a Coke machine entrepreneur. Lesson 2, take advantage of the opportunities when they present themselves. I've got an old saying, deals are like streetcars. The streetcar comes by every 10 minutes. If you don't look at the marquee of every streetcar, you never catch the right streetcar. And if you don't look at every deal, you never make a deal. So I look at a lot of deals. I don't make a lot of them, but I look at all. At age 14, I got my driver's license and bought a car. With little mobility, I saw opportunities for other enterprises. At night, during the week, I stuffed bus transfer coupons in envelopes excuse me, for the bus drivers to give out the next day. And on Saturdays, we had a money truck that ran, my dad did, 7 days a week. And back then, buses had fare boxes. You don't see them now, but at that time they had fare boxes. And in the box, at the bottom, was a lock box. And the bus drivers made change with a little change deal that hung on the fare box. So when you got on, you gave them $1 or $5 or whatever, they gave you change. You put the change in the bus, in the thing. Well, the money truck ran 7 days a week, and the man that drove it was off on Saturdays. So my dad put me to work driving the money truck on Saturday. Went to work at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'd go downtown and go to all 2 or 3 locations and take empty fare boxes, pick up the full fare boxes. Then when I did that, while I was making those rounds, they would call, the dispatchers from each location would call in and say, I need 10 rolls of quarters, 2 rolls of dimes, whatever. By the time I made the rounds, they had counted enough money. They'd give me the money for each location. I'd go back, take empty fare boxes again, pick up the money, they'd give me dollars and tens and fives, and I'd give them the rolls and come back. And I got off every day at about 12 o'clock. Well, I'd made a deal with the Texaco station right down the street from my house that if they'd close their wash and grease rack at noon. If I'd come in and clean up their wash and grease rack, they'd let me use their facility to work on my car. So one Saturday afternoon, I was working on my car like I always did. I had a 50 model Chrysler 2-door hardtop with an AM radio. I put a rear seat speaker in. That was downtown Georgia Brown. Anyway, I had a hot date that night. And before a hot date, you had to have a radio. Well, I didn't have it. It wasn't working. And I told you most of the places closed at noon that did service work. So I started looking in the yellow pages. It took me about, a few minutes. And I finally found a place out close to my dad's black bus station where a guy named Alexander, who was a black man. He said, you come on out here, I'll fix your radio. So I went out there, and when I got it there, he had a building that was probably 18, 20 feet wide and about 30 feet long. And I want to stop here and tell you that one thing happened. In 1946, TVs came out. I want to update you a little bit. And back then, they were 4, 6, and 8-inch screens. This is 1952. By that time, everybody was trading their little TVs in because they had 20 and 25, 28 inches. Now, they didn't have satellite, and they didn't have cable, but they were black and white. Well, I'm walking down his little aisleway in his building, and he's in his shop, and he's got all these little TVs sitting up there. And I said, Alexander, what are you doing? He said, well, I was taking the correspondence course, and I graduate in 2 weeks. I've been buying these trade-ins for $25 a piece, and I've been fixing them, putting 1 and 2 together, and selling them to black folks, because black folks don't have TVs. He said, if you had a little money, if you'd buy 25, 30, 40 of these at a time, you could probably buy them for $10,000. But as long as the picture tube's good. If the picture tube was good, you had a checker. If the picture wasn't good, you couldn't afford to fix it yourself. You just about throw them away. So that gave me another idea. So I saw another opportunity. I went to my dad, and that black bus station had some property out in front. I said, Dad, can I have a little of that extra land out front? He said, what do you want to do? He said, I want to build me about a 10 by 12 sheet metal office. I get a couple of buddies to build it. And I want to go into used TV business. And he said, how are you going to do that? He said, I got a guy named Alexander, who's a black man fixing TVs. I think I can make him a deal. I'll buy the trade-ins. He fixes them, takes 2 or 3 or 1, makes a TV, fixes the TVs. I'll still come in and run a money truck on Saturday, but I'll come to go there every afternoon, and I'll start selling used TVs, and I'll finance them, $29.95 and up, $5 down, $2 or $3 a week. If you owned a console, I'd have one of those. That's a little more money. He said, you think that'll work? I said, I think it will. He said, okay, go do what you want to do. So I did. Well, I also had to have somebody to help me collect payments, and the other thing I had to have was some antennas, because there wasn't any, like I told you, there's no cable, there's nothing. So I found a place in New York City that'd sell me a dozen aluminum antennas for $6 a piece with the freight paid. So I'd sell those antennas to the people that bought the TVs for $19.95. And I had a big old boy named Leroy, and he was my collector. And he'd come by every Friday afternoon about 4:30, and I'd show him who's past due, and telling me he had to bring me a TV or the money the next day with the antenna. Now, he didn't like skinning up on the side of that house, get that antenna down, so he might have made a few payments, I don't know. But anyway, Monday afternoon I'd come in, he'd have me payments, and I'd give him 10% of the payment, and I'd give him $3 or $4 to repossess the TV, and he'd have them to me. Well, I did that for a while, and that got me to handling, buying, and selling a few used cars. It really, really did. And it also, at the same time, taught me the finance skill. I named that company Rush's Unlimited. Well, by the time I was 16, I didn't have a dealer license, so I was selling these cars without a license, which was against the law. I couldn't transfer the titles. So anyway, I didn't get caught. Probably should have, but didn't. So I got my dad, and when you're 16, back then, I guess it's the same way. If your dad or mother goes with you, or your parent, you go down to the judge, he'll give you a minor's release, which made you legal to borrow money, get a dealer's license, do all this stuff. So I got one. Well, by that time, I'd been doing pretty good, and I'd met a man named W.D. Morgan, and by that time I was doing a lot of used car business, and I had a line of credit at the bank for $50,000. And understand, cars back then were, a new Chevrolet was $1,000, $1,100, and a new Cadillac was $2,500, and used cars were $300, $700, $800. They're cheap. This W.D. Morgan, I'd sold him a few cars, and he was a big wholesaler in downtown Houston. He had 7 guys working off his lot that were wholesalers. He said to me, Marvin, if you had a little money, he said, I got those guys that are down there, somebody else is paying for their cars. But if you want to do it, I'll get them to let you pay them for them. You charge them $15 a car, we'll split the profit for 1 week, and if they haven't sold it in 1 week, they reduce it 10%. If they hadn't sold it in the second week, I'll sell it. Well, I'm telling you what, that's the best thing I ever did, man. I'm there at home, living at home, taking in $300, $400, $500 a week, paying no taxes, had me a new car and a boat and motor. I was doing downtown Georgia Brown. I'm telling you, just the best thing I ever did. Anyway, lesson number 4, let's learn the parts and service business. I hated school. I love math, and I made straight A's in math. And I'm probably the only person that took English 1 4 times and had to pass it in summer school. I skipped school. I didn't go to school unless I had to. In fact, I had to graduate in summer school, and I got married 2 weeks later. Well, it's been my dad's dream for many years. He only went to the 8th grade for me to go to college. So after I got married, before I got married, he said, I'll make you a deal. You go sign in to University of Houston. You start to college. I want you to get a college degree. I'll pay for it. You go to noon. Get out by noon on all of them. I want you to come down to the downtown bus station and do some book work, what it really was. It had math involved, and he said, I want you to do that for me, and I'll pay you $500 a work. You work till 7 or 7:30 every night and work all day Saturday. Well, that's a good deal, man. $500 a month was a lot of money back then. I said, okay, I'm in. Well, I was about a month before school. Back then, college didn't start till mid-September, and this was, late first part of August. So when the school did start in mid-September, I registered at the University of Houston. And I went for 2 days, and the third day I went back and said, everybody goodbye. That was a little mistake there because I didn't know my dad was going to get my grades later. So I was laying up at home in an apartment with my new wife, who by that time was already pregnant with my first son. Laying up there watching the Late Late Show and getting up the next morning, eating about 10:30 or 10:30 in the morning, going to work about noon. I had a great deal. Till about end of October, 1st September, and I got my grades, which I didn't know he was going to get. One morning I'm laying up there in bed, phone rings, my wife answered, said, give William Marvin the damn phone. I gave it to him. My dad had some property out Interstate 45, which is the Dallas-Houston highway, and it had some acreage, and he had some cattle on it. He put a 6-acre lake on it, and I eventually built a house out there, but that time I didn't. And he said, I want you to meet me on top of the dam in 30 minutes. I said, okay. So I go meet him on top of the dam. Sits down with me, says, you're not going to school, are you? I said, no, sir. Well, you can't work for me if you're not going to go to school. I said, okay, I guess I'll quit. So I did. Went home, thought, what am I going to do now? Got a wife, pregnant, how am I going to make a living? I looked in the paper, and I know some of the older people here will know this, but most of y'all won't know this. There was a company that started in the late 1800s called the Fuller Brush Company. They had in the newspaper. And they hired men to go door to door with a case about this big, and they sold brushes, hair brushes, toothbrushes, combs, just any kind of brush you can think, hand brush you can think of, whether you wash the dishes with it, whatever. Then they also sold mops and sponges and all that stuff. You'd mail that to them. So I got me a job as a Fuller Brush man. And I started going door to door. Well, in December 1957, my dad calls me, early December. He said, you come out here, I want to talk to you. Well, my dad he said, you're not serious about going to college, are you? I said, nope. Well, I'm going to stop here and tell you, my dad had been running school buses. But GM owned the city bus business at that time. I mean, they literally owned the business. Took 2.5 years to get a new bus. Everybody wanted GM diesel buses. There were some small manufacturers, but GM literally owned it. What happened to GM is the government made them give their designs up, and they got out of was a monopoly, and they got out of that business 10, 15 years later. Anyway, he says, I got these mechanics to fix these school buses. They can't fix these diesels. So I've talked to General Motors, and they make Detroit diesel engines. They make Allison transmission, automatic transmissions, and they make Delco Remy alternators and rectifiers, and that's 4 car set alternators. He said, I got a proposition for you. They start this first Detroit diesel school 2 days after New Year's, and this was sometime in December. He said, if you go up there and go to school, learn how to overhaul engines, learn how to overhaul transmissions, learn how to fix the electrical system, come back and run my shop, you got a job. I said, wait. He said, I'm going to pay you $1,000 a month. I said, wait a minute. I'll do that, but I'm not going to do that forever. I'll come back, I'll teach your people. If I can't teach them, I'll hire some more, and I'll hire your service manager and parts manager. But when we get these road calls down to where they're supposed to be, and that's when they have to go pick up a vehicle, pick up a bus, we get them down to where you're happy with it, then I want you to hit my salary half and do. I'll oversee your shop, but I want to do something else. He said, that's fine. Well, we did, and I did it. Well, about the time, this was probably June or July of '58, my dad fell in love with diesel buses. So he said, I need some more buses. You see if you can find me some. I said, how many you want? He said, 10, 15, 20. I looked in a magazine, and there was a man named Hausman Bus Sales, Jerry Hausman. And he had listed some diesel buses like we wanted, the model number and the size and what have you. So I called him and he said, well, they're in Minneapolis. If you meet me in Minneapolis, he was in Chicago. You meet me in Minneapolis tomorrow, and I'll show them to you. So I did. I flew up there and looked at them. They were great buses. Called my dad and said, Dad, we need to buy these buses. Well, you know, my dad was a big drinker and gambler. He said, I'm going out gambling tonight. I'm going to be drunk as hell tonight. I'll probably hung over tomorrow. I'll see you the day after tomorrow. I said, okay. So we just sat around and talked. Well, Jerry started talking to me, and I still had my line of credit at the bank. And he said, look, all these buses, these new buses they're buying, he said, they don't get them for 2.5 years. And they don't know how to sell used buses. And I can tell you, a used bus was worth $5,000 to $10,000. And I think I told you new buses were, maybe I didn't tell you, they're $25,000 to $25,000 to $28,000. That's with air conditioner without. He said, you know, these people get these buses. And he said, if we'd go in there 4 or 5 months before those buses come in and say, look, you say you want $8,500 for them, we'll give you $7,750 now. You don't have to worry about them. But we'll give you $300, $200 deposit on all of them if it's 50 of them or 60 of them. And 1 month after those new buses are delivered, whatever we haven't paid you for, you keep the money, the $300 or $200. But understand, it took about a month to get the new buses in and put the fare boxes on them and the signs and all the stuff. Well, I'm telling you, he had the right idea. We started doing that, and I'm telling you, we really started doing well. We started making a lot of money, and in that time, we were selling so many into South America, Central America, Mexico. Back then, they didn't have telephone service down there. They had radio telephone. It was very expensive. But they did have telex machines. So I went down there for about 4, 5, 6 weeks, and I went to all these commission offices. They had commission offices everywhere. They'd sell anything as long as you'd send the stuff to them. I went and made a deal with these commission offices in all those countries. We'd send them specs and pictures of the buses and the prices and all that stuff. Then about every 10, 12, 14 weeks, I'd go down there for 4 or 5 weeks, round up all the people who wanted to buy them. I'd come back. They'd send a letter of credit to Chase Manhattan back in New York. They'd come up and look at the buses. If they wanted them, then all we had to do is load them on the boat, get a bill of lading certificate, take it to the bank, and they'd pay us. And we did very, very well. Well, we did this for over 3 years till in the late '61. My dad had been trying to sell his bus companies for a number of years. He came to me one day and he said, can you sell my bus company for you? This was in sometime middle of '61, I guess. I said, I know I can, but you're only 56 years old. Why do you want to sell this bus company? He said, I just don't want to do it anymore. I'm going to quit. He said, if you don't, I've got those guys over 10%. Somebody's going to sell it here pretty soon. I said, I can sell it for you. He said, okay, sell it. Well, in the meantime, my wife, by that time, we had 3 boys that were 14 months old, and she was tired of me traveling, and she told me if I didn't quit traveling, we'd get a divorce. So, at that particular time, I sold my dad's bus company, and I sold out my part to Hausman Bus Sales. Hausman Bus Sales today, Jerry Hausman is dead. Hausman Bus Sales today is the largest used bus dealer in the world. Still are, in Chicago. Anyway, but Probably should have stayed there, but didn't, but I came out pretty well anyway. Anyway, so, so my dad had that property out on Dallas Highway, I told you. So by that time, I'd built a house. I had a few horses. So I thought I'd just go out there and relax for a while. I had the money I sold the bus company for and whatever. But I only did that for a couple of months. I got bored. So I went up to Conroe, which is just north of Houston, as you know. At that time, it was about 18,000 people. I don't know how many is there now, maybe 70, 80, 100. I don't know how many is there, but it's a little big town then. That would be the same thing I had before. I was selling some used cars and carrying the paper. I did that for about a year, but I got bored doing that. And I had a friend of mine who had a place in Bel Air, right off of Bel Air Boulevard and Chimney Rock Road. And he had a car shop and a body shop and a used car lot. Well, I'd had a new finance company move into Conroe, so I sold him all my paper. I took the used cars, I went down and bought half his company, and then I started doing that for a year or so. And that's the time when I really started out to set up my goals. And I went to every General Motors division in Houston and put my application in to get a General Motors franchise. Well, that was yet to come. Anyway, I did that for about a year or so and decided I want to do something different. So I sold out to Hennon and went and bought me a junkyard. But I bought it for a little different reason than most people did. I bought it to buy salvage. Hurricanes, earthquakes, tornadoes, floods. I bought cars, buses, airplanes, boats, parts warehouses with the roof blown off, buy the parts that were damaged. And I started that in the middle of '63 and was doing it. And in August of 1964, I was in Florida, and then from August to November, they had 5 hurricanes hit Florida. So I was there and was there for about 3 or 4 months. I'm walking out of my motel room in August of '64, and my phone rings. The man says, "Is this Marvin Rush?" I said, "Yes, it is." He said, "My name is C.W. Red Hames. I'm the GMC zone manager for GMC Trucks in San Antonio." I said, "Yes, sir. What can I do for you?" He said, "Well, I understand you want to be a dealer." I said, "Yes, I do." He said, "Well, I'm traveling this week and next week, but come next Thursday, I'm coming in from El Paso, and my office is 2 blocks from the airport. I'll get in about 9:45. I'll tell you what flight number I'm on. You meet me in front of that thing. I'll be coming out where the luggage is. I'll tell you how you can identify me. Pick me up. We'll go to my zone office. We'll talk for 4 hours and see what we can do." So I came back to Houston the next week. I didn't have anybody to take with my dad because he still had money. Took him with me, and we went over and spent the whole day. Come back at night. My dad on the way back says, "You're crazy. You've lost your mind. You don't know what you're doing. You'll never do this. You'll never make any money. I'm not getting involved." And I told him, "Well, Dad, I can tell you this. I'm going to keep trying until I get it done. I will get it done." So that was probably, by that time, it was probably in I guess sometime in September. I went back to the junkyard and went to work, and I didn't have hardly any luck. I had a CPA named Dick Beavers who had always done my company's books and my books and done my tax return. And in late November, he came by the junkyard one day, and he said, "I just want to come by and tell you, Marvin, you got to have all your stuff together by the 15th of January. I'm really busy. I need to have it together." I told him, "Fine, I'll get it for you." I said, "You got a minute?" He said, "Yeah, let's go down the street and have a cup of coffee." Well, I knew he had a bunch of big clients. I said, "Dick, let me tell you my story." So I told him the story. I said, "I need to put this GMC truck franchise, try to get this franchise. I've got it. I just got to get something done because the zone manager's getting a little tired of me not coming up with the money." He said, "Well, this may take me a few weeks." And I said, "Well, see what you can do and let me know." Well, right after Christmas, my phone rang. It was actually after New Year's. He said, "I got a couple of guys that are very wealthy. They'd like to talk to you." So I went and met with them about 3 times. And finally, one of the guys was the senior guy, and he had his right-hand man had 20% of whatever he had. He said, "We're going to take 40% of it. My partner will take 8, and I'll take 32. And you're going to get 20. You got to find somebody else that needs 40%. So who did I call? But Dick Beavers again. In about a month, he found me a guy. We got everybody together. And anyway, guess what? On March the 3rd, the company was formed, and I went on the payroll. And that's when Rush Enterprises was started. Now, we had a piece of property, but we didn't have a building. So they contracted the building, I built it. And on August the 9th, 1965, I accomplished my first goal. I opened my GMC truck franchise as a dealer in Houston, Texas. What I didn't know or didn't realize is I had a competing GMC factory branch in Houston. At that time, there was a lot of manufacturers put in factory stores. They weren't there to make money as a dealer. They were there to sell money and make money as a manufacturer. So they bought their trucks for the same price, with the exception that you get a kickback at the end of the year. They gave that to the store that time then. They paid no interest on their inventory. It was a big, big deal. Well, I wasn't sick, about 60 days, and I was literally broke. I'd just heard of a truck called Peterbilt. And there was a Peterbilt dealer in town, which I'll tell you about in a minute. But I knew he didn't sell any trucks. I knew him. He was a pipeliner, and all he did was sell to himself. He wouldn't take trades and he wouldn't finance. But I didn't know if that'd make any difference. Finally, my partners wouldn't let me have the money to go to California. So I finally come down and I lied to them and I said, hey, Peterbilt's called me, and they wouldn't even talk to me on the phone yet. So Peterbilt's called me and they told me to come out there and see them and spend a couple, 3 days, and they're going to see if they can't do it for me. Well, that was a lie. Back then there wasn't any MasterCards and Visas, but there was an American Express, but you had to pay it all in 30 days. But I had a card called Carta Blanca, which was put out by the Hilton Hotels. You could pay that out. So I put it on that hotel and I flew to California. Their manufacturing plant was in Newark, California, just across the bay from San Jose. Well, it only took me about 2 years to pay that card off. But anyway, another story. But I got out there and got there on a Sunday night, and I checked in a motel right across the street, a block down from the plant, which was a $9.95 a night motel. And I go over and I sit in their waiting room. Joe was a switchboard operator, was there for many years. And the general manager was named John Bodden, and the general sales manager was named Jim Luce. They came in on Monday morning. They introduced me to him. Said, we'll see you later. Went out for lunch, came back, check in, went home for the evening. Home Thursday, I was about to give up. At noon, just before noon, Mr. Luce walked out and he said, Marvin, you're the most persistent SOB I've ever seen. So when I get back from lunch, I'm going to interview you. It's okay. So he interviewed me. I came back. He interviewed me, went in there, and we spent about 2 hours. He said, I'm going to get Mr. Bodden in here. So Mr. Bodden came in. Well, we finally got through about 5. Too late to catch a plane back home. They said, you go on home. We'll see what we can do for you. We'll be back in touch with you in a couple of weeks. So I go home. That was a Friday I left. The next Monday week, that morning at 10:30, which was 8:30 California time, my phone rang. It's both of them. Congratulations, you're our new GMC dealer, but you know we've got a dealer there. We've got some things to work out with him. We'll be in touch. Okay. I was higher than Georgia Pine. I'm telling you, I was happy. About 4:30 that afternoon, the phone rang again. It was Mr. Luce. The general manager didn't call me. He said, sorry, Marvin, you can't have a franchise. Oh, man, I was just lower than I just couldn't believe. I just didn't know what I was going to do. It was just breaking my heart because I knew I was going to go broke. Anyway, so I did what I normally did. I put my head down, my ass up, and I went back out and went to work. 2 weeks later, on a Monday morning, I'm sitting in my office about 10 o'clock, 10:15. And my office faced there's trucks out in front of the place, but it faced the main street. And then right in front of me was a sidewalk and cars parked there. A black rent-a-car showed up. They got out, and there was Mr. Bodden and Mr. Luce. I thought, what in the world they want? So I ran out to the switchboard operator and told them, come on in. They came in, sat down, and said, well, we're going to tell you a story. We called to get you approved on that Monday, and they said, no, the guy's name was Panama Shiflett, said he'll sue you. We're not going to do that. They said, we can convince him, since he don't take trades, he doesn't finance, and he only sells to himself, if we can convince him to put another dealer there and he don't pursue us and sign an agreement, will you let us put Mr. Rush in? I said, yes. So we're here to tell you, he signed the agreement, and you're now our Peterbilt dealer. And that's how I got Peterbilt. If I hadn't had Peterbilt, I'd be broke today. Anyway, lesson 6, learn accounting. Ouch. Not an easier ones to learn, at least for me. By early 1966, because of my lack of accounting skills, the dealership was nearly broke, but I didn't know it. I wasn't smart enough to know it. We had been using an off-site computer system from the beginning. Now, we didn't have computers, but we put this on a little tape, and they read it every night and would update our books, and once a month we'd get the books in. Well, I thought we were doing so great because every month the mailman would bring the books in. They start about this high. Within about 7, 8 months, they put them on a 2-wheeler. I thought, man, I'm really doing good. We're making lots of money. I didn't know about reconciling books. I didn't know what that meant. Anyway, so it wasn't long till I found out that the opposite. I found out how lazy my CPA buddy Dick Beavers was, and that I had a woman controller who was embezzling funds from me, from a company. She eventually went to jail. Well, when that happened, I got Mr. Beavers, and I said, Mr. Beavers, I don't care what you're doing, but you're going to work with me till we get this straight. The problem was I only got books once a month. So I worked 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I had one of our managers come in one day a week, one night at night a week and work with us. And I did that for over 3 months. But I'll tell you one thing. It taught me how to understand the accounting system. It made an accountant out of me. If I don't have a computer, I probably wouldn't, but I knew how to read the books. You know how to correct them with a journal entry. Okay, that's about all I knew. Anyway, it taught me to manage cash, keep track of the new and used truck inventories, and parts inventory, and receivables. I still have about 6 reports every day that come on my desk, and I can tell you what's going on in the whole United States just by those reports. Just aging reports and all kinds of things. But anyway, after that business was good, 1970, my investors got all their money back. And the company began paying them big salaries, furnishing them company cars, American Express cards, maids, and they still don't control the company. Lesson 7. There's one big and painful one. Watch your credit practices. From 1974 to 1976, business took a big downturn. We lost heavily due to repossessions and bad credit decisions and recourse financing. Well, recourse financing is where you endorse everything. And bad credit decisions was Marvin. I wasn't smart enough to know about what credit to buy. In December 1974, we needed additional capital to survive. I went to my investors who refused to invest any capital in the business. Since they refused to, I stopped all their salaries, took their cars away, all their perks, maids, everything. And I took a 50% salary cut, and 8 of my top people took a 20%, and we let off 20% of the people. My investors responded by saying they wanted off the company debt at the bank. Well, they were personally obligated to about $3 or $3.5 million worth of debt. And they had the money to pay it. We did. And they suggested I buy the company from them or sell it to someone else. Well, I'll tell you what, I tried very hard to sell it to someone else. Had 2 or 3 deals, and they all blew up. And it took a long time, and they finally put $250,000 in the business, or I'd have been broke. They did. But anyway, they loaned it to us. Well, it took time, a lot of time. But finally, I had a guy who I'd put in the trucking business back in 1996, and 66, named Don Park, and he'd become very successful. I'd financed him at the bank and endorsed his paper originally, but by that time he'd done so well, he was on the board of the bank, and he was doing very, very well. And I convinced him to take his 2 companies and merge it with mine. Mine were a lot bigger, but we weren't making any money. And if we could save this thing, he'd get half of it and I would. Well, he said, okay. So then I started negotiating with the shareholders. And it took me till June the 9th. And I finally, the shareholders, investors, gave us the companies, free and clear, to me and my new partner. Plus, I'd paid them the $250 back during that time. They loaned us, they bought $300,000 worth of preferred stock, and I started paying them dividends on it, and I got them off the company debt at the bank. I'm telling you, I sold my insurance agency for a couple of $1 million. I started peeling off some things. I sold Fort Worth for some money. Started selling them, and things turned around, and we started doing really, really well. And by early 1979, I had a deal on all my Houston stores except my tire store and my dealership here in San Antonio. And of course, Mr. Park's 2 companies. So I sold them all. Mr. Park took his 2 companies back. I took my 2 back. We split some money, and he took half the real estate we owned. I took the other half, and we split our ways, and I moved to San Antonio. Thought I would retire at 40 years old. You got to be kidding me. Anyway, lesson number 8, too much debt will wipe you out. In spring of 1980, I was bored again. Had a friend, a guy that worked for me for years, that was from Hawaii, went back to Hawaii, and he'd gone in the investment business. He called me one day, and he said, hey, you still in the tire business? I said, yeah, I am. He said, there's a company out here called Tire Warehouse. They have, 75 or 65% of all the passenger car business in the state, and they're on every island, 15 locations. Very profitable, and the man, Mr. Friend, wants to sell them. I said, might like to go to Hawaii. It might be a good idea. Wrong. Anyway, so I flew out there and looked at all the stores. I didn't meet Mr. Friend that time. Came back, decided I'd try to buy him. Went back out and Mr. Friend, and I bought him out. But during the time before I bought him out, he told me a few things about Hawaii, which I didn't know. Number one, if you're from Canada, the United States, they call us haoles. I'm not going to tell you what that means, but it ain't very good, okay? And they don't like us. And he told me, he said, do not do any of your accounting in Hawaii. Do it all in Texas like I do in Arizona. He's from Phoenix. He said, do not borrow any money in Hawaii. They'll get you. Don't worry about it. Just borrow it on your Texas assets. He said, I've got a front man named Malcolm Love. He'll stay with you. Everybody thinks he owns it. He doesn't, but they don't know how he owns this how he's on this place. He gave me a lot of advice, so I bought him out. Well, it took me about 4 months after I bought him Labor Day. It took me about 4 months to get the accounting switched to my places, and we sent it overnight on back then on Brandon Fairways and then American. It was in our stores the next morning, in our office the next morning, every morning. We paid all our bills out of there except we paid the payroll in Hawaii so they could cash their local checks. Everything was fine. I had me, after 4 months, I came back to Texas. I had me a condo on Waikiki Beach. Man, you know, really, really good place. I was having in downtown Georgia Brown again. I thought, man, I can have me take my wife and family over there. We can have a good time, go over a couple, 3 months and have a great time. Well, that was fine until about mid-March, and I was doing $38,000 a day in sales at a 65% gross profit. Okay, my sales fell, okay, to 22,000, and I thought, what in the world has happened? Well, I jumped on a plane, went back out there, didn't know what to do, so I said, I'll fix the problem. I just cut my gross profit about 7-8%. Right back to sales went. Not quite as much, but good enough we were making money. In the meantime, I called Mr. Friend and told him, I said, you know, I had some real problems. He said, well, see how things go for a little while. So a couple of months later, my sales fell worse. I was really in trouble. And I understand I was pulling all the money out of these other stores here in Texas just to keep me going over there because I couldn't borrow any money in the banks anymore. Anyway, Mr. Friend, I called him and he said, I'm going to send my team out there and see what's going on. He did. He came out, stayed a couple of weeks, they went back. Said, we don't really know what's going on. Kept going on. About a month later, he called and said, I think I'll come back out there. I want to relook at this. He came back and looked, because I owed him $5 million on this deal to start with. And I was down to about 2.5 at that time. I paid him real fast. Anyway, so he comes back over and he tells me right after he'd been there, he said, Marvin, the problem with this is recession has hit Hawaii. I said, what do you mean? And I didn't know this. I wasn't smart enough to know again. He said tourism last year was 3.3 million, which I knew. And the number one industry in Hawaii was tourism and military. That was the two biggest industries. He said, and that's who I catered to. He said, this year you're going to do $1.3 million. That's your problem. If it had been me, same thing would happen to me if I hadn't sold out to you. I'd have been in real, real trouble. I said, okay, buddy. Well, I immediately then called. I didn't have lawyers in San Antonio. I hadn't been here long enough, so I called my lawyers in Houston and flew back to Houston. This was in September sometime. They said, well, I had 5 deals working on these locations, and what they were working on locations for was not just to be tire stores. They wanted locations in Hawaii, the hardest thing to find because of real estate, but I had some good locations. So I had 7-Eleven looking at it. I had a drugstore chain out of Seattle. I had 2 tire stores, one in San Francisco, one in LA, and another one I don't remember. They all wanted my locations. And they said, look, you got 100 and some odd employees. You just keep operating as long as you can to try to save these people's jobs. But when all your deals blow up, you call us. Well, I piddled around. And finally, 1st of December, all my deals blew up. I called the lawyer and I said, I'm out of luck. They said, well, how long can you run? I said, I don't know. They said, well, we don't ever want you to buy anything from the mainland or from China or wherever you buy it. Only thing we want you to do, you can buy your tubes and flaps and weights and you know, things like that go on the tires locally. I said, let me get there too. So I called him back a couple days later. I said, I can go to January the 16th. I said, okay, just keep on going. Well, I called Mr. Friend. I said, Harold, I just want to know, I'm going down. I said, it looks like January the 16th. He said, I'll be out there on New Year's Day. I said, okay. So we got out there. It was on a Friday. And anyway, I stayed in a condo, and right by the condo was a nice hotel. He was staying at the hotel. Came over to my condo, and we stayed there the whole weekend. He said, let me tell you something, Marvin. This ain't going down. I'm going to take it back over. I'm not going to let Tire Warehouse go down. I said, okay. You're the boss. I can't do nothing. So on Monday morning, he called the guy in San Francisco who was named Don Cutler. Don also had 3 stores in Hawaii. He's one of the guys that fell out on me. And he said, Don, I want you to know Tire Warehouse isn't going anywhere. Marvin's going to get out, and I'm coming back in. So if you think you're going to grow, you're not going to grow as long as we're here. If you've got any interest in buying this, you better let me know Wednesday because I've got to get this done before Monday. He shot his best shot, and on Wednesday morning the phone rang. He said, I'll be there tomorrow morning. Well, I called my lawyers in Texas. I said, look, let me see what's going on. I'll call you Friday. I hired some lawyers in Hawaii, in Honolulu, And we started negotiating on Thursday. We negotiated Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. On Friday, I called the lawyer and said, look, I think I got a deal, but I won't know that till Monday. It was a 4-hour time change in the winter between Hawaii and San Antonio or Houston. I said, you have somebody down at the courthouse at 3:30, your time, till they can file before 4 at the federal courthouse. If you don't hear from me by 3:30, which is 11:30 my time, file. Anyway, on Sunday night, we all had an agreement. Mr. Cutler said, I'll be here in the morning with the checks and we'll close this thing down. Cashier's checks, what he said. Okay. Well, of course, I show up at 7 o'clock. Harold shows up at 7 o'clock, and waiting there for him. 9 o'clock comes, he doesn't show. 9:10, 9:20, 9:30, he don't show. About 9:40, I'm about to gag, and a little girl comes in there and said, Mr. Rush in here? Had a note for me. So Mr. Cutler had trouble with his wire. He's got the checks now, and he'll be there in 5 minutes. He showed up. We signed everything. I immediately went to the phone about 10:30 and said, okay, don't file. Hung up. Anyway, he said, Mr. Cutler said to me, he said, how long are you going to be here? I said, I'm leaving on July the 19th, which is Tuesday. Well, that's a week from now. I said, yeah, over a week. He said, well, you need to come out here and visit with me. I said, I can't come out right now. I need to talk to Mr. Friend. I'll be out there later on today. So I went down and sat down with Harold. I said, Harold, I don't know what I'm. Harold's a very religious Baptist, one of the most straight, honest guys I've ever met. Still alive. Called me 2 weeks ago. I said, Harold, I don't know what I'm going to do. Borrowed the bank about $3.5 million. They've written my loans off. I've still got the businesses. I'm going to have to figure out a deal with them. I'll figure out some way, maybe take you 5 years, 10 years to pay you, but I will pay you. He looked at me and said, Marvin, don't you remember what I told you? That's what he's talking about. He said, when I was there the last time, I told you if it had been me, I'd have gone broke, just like you. I charge you too much. I forgive the $2 million. I said, you what? He said, I forgive the $2 million. You're the straightest, most honest guy I ever dealt with in my life. I mean, I just nearly broke down in tears. I still nearly cry when I think about it, because I was done if he'd got me. He said, nope, you're going back and go to work. Well, I have to tell you that I get teared up when I talk about this. Anyway, so I came back to Texas. But you need to know something about, when I came back, I went down to Frost Bank. That's who I owed the money to. And I got back whatever day it was, and I went down the next morning, and they sat down and said, look, Marvin, said, we got $3.5 million of your debt. We've written it off. We want you to go back to work. You know what you can do in the truck stores, go back. I've been banking with them since '65. Said, you go out there and turn that thing around and get us paid. I said, okay, I will. So I went out. I didn't have a car. I'd sold my cars. So I went down to the Cadillac store that afternoon, bought a new Cadillac, told them send all the papers to the Frost Bank, they'll pay you. Well, they didn't pay them. They turned the thing down. I had to go to GMAC, or what is now Ally Finance, to get them financed. I couldn't get it financed. I couldn't even finance a car. Anyway, I got it done. But I want to tell you something. I was mad at the world for 10 to 12 years. I thought I was bulletproof. I couldn't be hurt. I was the smartest man that ever walked. But the good Lord had a plan for me. He humbled me. He made me the different person. It's the best thing that ever happened to me. It took 10 or 12 years to figure that out. But praise the Lord and pass the ammunition. I really mean that sincerely. Really, really do. Best thing that ever happened to me. Anyway, moved back to the stand stores, the San Antonio truck store. Told you the same thing I did then. I put my head up, my ass down. I went back to work. In 4 years, I paid the bank off. By 1998, I'd bought the Houston dealership back out of bankruptcy, and 2 of my sons had come into the business. It's at that time that we decided to grow Rush Enterprises to $1 billion a year business. We were at $60 million annual revenue. Everything's a good story from here. In 1991, the second goal I had was realized. I bought 3 car dealerships, including the Cadillac franchise. By 1993, my third goal came to pass. I bought my first bank, Converse National Bank, and sold it in 1998. I started Mission Bank in 99. I sold it in 2003. Then I started Techstar National Bank, which I still own. Lesson 9, talent pays for itself. By the end of 1995, Rush Enterprises had done over $260 million in revenue. We had a great team, a lot of young talent who we paid big salaries, big bonuses, and other perks. But if we're going to keep them, we had to give them equity. My dad always told me something, and I never forgot it. He said, son, surround yourself with good people and pay them well. And he said this, I don't know him to say it. He said, and by God, if you make money, you make damn sure they do too. And I'm telling you, I hire the best people, the right people for the right job, And I don't hire what I call old retreads. We hire young college graduates and train them well. Give them an opportunity because they are your future. In order to keep my team intact, I began search for ways to give them equity. The only way I could do that was some form of stock options. So that's why I started looking at going public, not for the money. So I went to PACCAR, who was the one that owns Peterbilt and Kenworth, in '95, and I asked permission from Mr. Chuck Pickett, who was chairman at the time, and he gave me permission to go public. Now, it took a while, it took a year to get to go public, but in that meantime, I had like 16, 18 GMC franchises. Well, I knew General Motors wouldn't approve it because they wouldn't approve anybody. Ford, Chrysler, nobody approved anybody to go public, so I didn't ask them. On June the 7th, 1996, my fourth goal was achieved. I went public, and at the same time, I'd written GM a letter and told them what I'd done. Well, I have to tell you that we were the first franchise motor vehicle in the United States ever to go public because nobody lets you. About 6 or 8 weeks later, I think it was 8 weeks, in GM's normal fast mode, that's why they went broke, I got a letter from them and said, "You can't do this, you violated the principle," which I knew all that. I called them back, but the one thing about it, when they cancel you, then they have to buy back your new trucks, your new parts, all your signs, and all your pools. Now, the tines and pools are depreciated, but they buy them back for whatever you depreciate them to, whatever their schedule is. So, I wrote them back and said, "Okay, where do you want your trucks? Where do you want your parts? Where do you want all this stuff?" 6, 7 weeks later, I got another letter from them and said, "Here's your new applications. Sign them, fill them out. We're going to let you go public." Well, I'm telling you, it wasn't let me go public. I'd already gone public. But anyway, and I don't remember exactly what it said. We filled out the applications. But what happened then is every car dealer that wanted to go public could go public. And AutoNation tried to buy me before I went because they wanted my public venue I had. Didn't sell it to them. Anyway, I got off my beat here for a minute. When I went public, I sold all my auto stores so I could concentrate exclusively on the public company. I own them personally, and they told me, "Hey, you need to get out of the car business," which I did. We've been public for over 16 years. In 2004, Rush Enterprises did $1,100,000,000 in business, my 5th goal. 2006, just prior to the most difficult downturn in our history, we did $2.4 billion in sales. I'm sure you know that we were living through some unprecedented times in the truck business, and I'm talking about from 2009 to 2011. It was a down market combined with a poor economy. Even so, in 2010, we did $1.5 billion in business and still were profitable. Last year, we did $3.1 billion in sales, and we achieved the highest annual pre-tax income in the company's history. Today, we consider ourselves to be the service solution providers for the commercial vehicle industry. The name of Rush, or one of its 12 affiliates, businesses, is attached to over 130 locations in 15 states. We have nearly 4,400 employees. The most known business is Rush Truck Centers, which accounts for about 80 of those locations and is the largest heavy and medium-duty truck dealer group in the U.S. We now operate 2 divisions, which is within the truck centers, a Peterbilt truck division and an international truck division. In all, we represent 10 different manufacturers of heavy and medium-duty trucks within those truck centers. We are still the largest Peterbilt dealer, taking more than 35% of their worldwide production. We are also the largest international dealer, Hino dealer, Isuzu dealer, and we're growing rapidly with Ford. The balance of our companies are made up of our insurance, finance, leasing, bus division, and tire stores, as well as our corporate headquarters, and we have our own proprietary line of parts and accessories called RigTough. As previously mentioned, I own Textor National Bank, which is headquartered in San Antonio. I guess you could say that I've accomplished all my goals, but I feel like the song, I can't sing worth a damn, only just begun. Okay? So I've set a new goal, and that is to do $5 billion sales annually by 2015. I think we'll make that without a problem. You now have heard my 9 lessons, but I'd like to give you a couple of very important tips that I tell my employees. I'll give you a horse, I'll give you the spurs, I'll give you the saddle, and I'll give you the bridle to ride that horse. But if you can't ride that horse, I'm not going to get a new rider. That means I'll give you all the help and support you need, but you're on your own to make the right decisions. Number two, every day when you get up to go to work, if you're not having fun, there must be something wrong. Take a long, hard look. Maybe you've chosen the wrong career path, because a person needs to enjoy what they do. Be sure you're having fun. Finally, I'd like to leave with a couple old sayings that my dad left me with. Always have several options, because it's a hell of a rat that's got one hole to run to. Second, if you're not the lead dog, the view never changes. Think about that. Thank you very much, and I'll happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you. I don't need this anymore.
Start firing.
Shoot, Luke, you got the gun. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What do you think, or how could you explain Rush Enterprises' competitive advantage and how you sustain that over a period of time?
Well, size has a lot to do with that. But the competitive advantage is the difference in this business and the car business. If you're a car dealer, you can sell one customer every 10 years and you're fine. Our business, there's only 200,000 class around, 200,000 in a good time, Class 8 trucks sold a year. So it's a relationship business. And you have to, for example, we've got about 40,000 mobile service trucks. And they work all over the United States, every oil field in the United States, everywhere. But it ties those customers to us. We don't make as much money with them, but they do business with us. And they do business with all our stores. Okay? So it's a relationship business, but it's a dangerous business because you can't screw them around. You got to take care of them and always take care of them. But that's the way the truck business is. And I think our name and reputation and what we do, we said with the solution provider for the truck business, we are. Whatever you want, we'll do. You tell us, we'll figure out a way to do it. And that's what makes us successful. And our people is what really makes us successful. Without our people, we wouldn't have nothing. Had a survey done about 3 years ago, maybe a little longer. And now back then we had about maybe 3,000 people, something like that. My average employee had been with me 27 and a half years. Now that has to say something. But it really makes me proud because we take care of our people and they take care of us. Did that answer your question? Okay. Yes, sir.
How has the development of the Eagle Ford Shale affected?
It's affected us quite a bit, but we do all the oil fields, whether they're in Utah or they're in Pennsylvania or wherever they might be, we're in them with our trucks, with our service trucks. So yes, but by doing that, what makes, as they start up down here, their customers the same. So they call us, and here we're right here, so it's easy here. Some of these places we have people, we keep motels rented and stuff for these people that are run up in Utah, wherever they are, and we switch them out every so often. But you got to do what the customer needs, because to make any money in the heavy-duty truck business and just sell road tractors, you're not going to make a lot of money. You've got to specialize and do things that we do. And a lot of people can't do that. A lot of people won't do that. And going public and having the cash to do it, it's a big, big difference too. Yes, sir.
What would you say the most difficult part of taking a company public is?
It was a lot easier than I thought it was. I think the most difficult part is riding around the country for about 2 months and going in 3 cities a day and making presentations to 6 or 8 people at each city and eating a hamburger on the plane and going to the next town, get up next morning and do the same thing. That gets pretty tough after about 2 months, 2.5 months. But that's the way you got to do it to sell your stock. But the accounting's different. You have to comply to all the SEC rules. But I've been in that so long, it's just old hat now, and we learned real quick. Because the SEC will learn you, they tell you if you don't. Yes, sir.
Are you willing to expand the Rush Enterprises in all the states in the U.S.?
Probably will never go up in the northeast. But other than that, and I'll tell you one other thing I did. I made a deal with PACCAR when I started with International that I told International this. I'll never, and when our area of responsibility is larger than San Antonio, it's a big area, okay, or any town, or everywhere. I'll never put a Peterbilt store where they have an Navistar group. I'll never put a Navistar group where I put a Peterbilt store. So that we're never competing with each other. Even though they don't compete, because Peterbilt's a lot more expensive truck, we're just not going to do that. And that's kept everybody pretty happy. But we would take every state if we can get them. Not the Northeast. I don't want to go up there. But I'm going to surround the Northeast. They're going to have to come through me when they're coming out. Okay? It's going to take a few more years. I may not be here, but it'll take a few more years. Nothing else? Yes, sir.
If you're in the truck business, why did you decide to start purchasing things?
One of my goals. And I made a lot of money with it. So I've owned two, and I've said, got this one. It'll be sold one of these days, but I don't have it for sale. I never had one for sale. They came and bought it from me. If they don't give the price, they can have it. I don't have anything I don't have for sale except my kids, my wife, my grandkids, and my family. Everything else is for sale. Just you meet my price, I'm gone. Yes, sir.
Why have you chosen to kind of like live in Seguin?
I'm sorry?
Why have you chosen to live in Seguin and like work out in New Braunfels?
Well, when I first got to San Antonio, and I moved here in '79. I lived in San Antonio, and then in '91 I bought a place on the lake, and I liked it. Well, in '98 we had the bad flood, and I didn't want to leave, so it took me a year to find property, and I'm over here off Rudolph Road now. And anyway, then it took 2.5 years to build that big house, so I decided to stay here. It's not that far from my office, 15, 18 minutes, you know, and I don't want to go back to San Antonio. I don't want to go to the traffic. I'm used to the country. It's okay with me. And we know most of the stuff we do, we travel. We got a big corporate jet in New Braunfels, so we travel a lot, and we get on the jet and go. We don't very seldom go commercial anywhere. So, yes, sir.
Are there any past business decisions that you regret? Maybe like getting, any past business decisions that you regret? Maybe like getting out of the used bus dealership?
Out of what dealership?
The used bus, the largest.
Well, they're not. You know, I got out of that because my wife made me either do that or quit traveling. I couldn't stay in if I didn't travel. I mean, it was a very successful business. I just had to get a divorce if I didn't, so I didn't get a divorce. It was real simple.
Anything you regret? Any decision?
Oh yeah, I should have never gone to Hawaii. I told you, I thought I was bulletproof when I went out there. And until the good Lord hit me in the head with two before and got my attention after a few years. He's right, I made a mistake. But you know, you don't win everything, but you do what I said. If you lose, you put your head down, your ass up, and go back at it again. Because you will make it. This country will let you do it. But you got to pay for your mistakes. Yes, sir.
What's changed in running a business from the 60s and 70s to today?
That's a good question. Let me think about it in a minute. In our business, what's changed, we're not the mom and pop truck dealer anymore like I was in the 60s and 70s. We're a nationwide, not yet, but we're a nationwide company. And so it's changed by being public and doing the things we do. Most of the private dealers can't afford to do. For example, let me give you, we sell BJ Services, Dowell, Western, Schlumberger, all those, Dowell, Schlumberger. We have a 250,000 square foot shop in Houston right by our truck dealership, and all we do is rig oil field trucks. It takes longer to rig the oil field trucks than it takes 3 to 6 months to rig one. Now rigging usually is more than the truck is. So we specialize in things. We were the largest natural gas truck, like Waste Management and Republic, the biggest two garbage companies. They buy all their natural gas trucks from us. But we do a lot of things for them. But we're able to do things that small dealers can't do. So our business has changed because of that. The mom and pop, unless he gets pretty good size, is going to be like he was before. Other than they've got computers and all the new stuff, you know. But if they don't cover a big territory, it's not as hard to run them as it is one of these. But when we got good people, it's a lot easier to run them. Our people do a great job. They really, really do. But you know, they get stock options and big pays, and you know, and that's what they're supposed to do. You know, I don't want them to leave. You know, we just don't hardly lose anybody. We really don't, unless somebody has to. They're married and their husband gets transferred, or you know, or something like that. But very seldom we lose anybody. I lost a girl here the other day with for years. She came to work here for the county because she didn't want to work as hard. What she told me. We do make you work pretty hard, but we pay you for it. Anybody?
Y'all have a lot more questions to ask.
On your path to success,
I'm sorry?
on your path to your success, did you find any difficulty not having a college degree?
I look back many times and wish that I had, but today I can tell you I probably did okay without it, you know. But, you know, I'm just one that didn't like school. I skipped school every time I could. I just, you know, I wanted to make money. I'd always want to make money. And good Lord's off good to me because I couldn't have been successful. I could have just been another guy, excuse my opinion, just picking shit with the chickens, but I'm not. Yes, sir.
You said that you didn't want to expand into the Northeast, but what are some of the criteria that Rush Enterprises goes through?
Well, we're in North Carolina now. We'll probably be in South Carolina pretty soon. I don't exactly know when. We bought all of Ohio in December, so we've got 8 stores in Ohio. We want to cover that part of the world. I'm probably grown as far as I can grow with Peterbilt because I really take 38%. I told you 35, but we take 38%. Nobody in the United States that represents any manufacturer of vehicles takes anywhere close to 5%. Okay? So it's kind of like the tail wags the dog. You know, they let me get too big. I don't mean that literally, but they don't want me to grow anymore, and we probably won't with Peterbilt. Unless they have somebody go broke and they can't find out enough money to buy it out. But I mean, you know, usually they buy it and put somebody else in it and finance it for them. So I don't think we'll grow much more with Peterbilt. Yes, sir.
Are there any other trucks that you want to add to your dealership, like brands of trucks you want to sell that you don't?
I used to have Volvos, and the reason I don't sell Volvos is because they sell direct, so they don't let you make any money. Peterbilt does not sell direct. Kenworth does not sell direct. Freightliner's the same way. They sell direct. So if you get on a big fleet deal, you might as well forget it. They're going to sell it cheaper and pay you $500 to sell it. And I can't afford to sell trucks for $500 a piece. Not the big trucks. Not the way you have to. Not if you take care of them like we take care of them. For example, we sell a fleet, or whoever it is, whoever it is, and they have a problem. It'd take the factory 2 weeks to get to them. We have 3 guys. That's all they do. And the minute they have a problem, and we say the shop says we got a problem, we don't know how to fix it. We have somebody out there. And we make the decision if we're going to fix it right now, whether we wait for the factory to pass. And if they don't pass, we eat it. But we're going to take care of them if we think it's right. And those are the kind of things that we do that keeps us more successful. But, you know, everybody else sells direct. Navistar sells direct, but they're in so much trouble they don't bother us. They've had some real financial problems. They're coming out of it. But, you know, we're not going to do a Freightliner deal. We're not going to do a Volvo deal. What's left? You know, Mac's owned by Volvo. What else is there? I got Ford stores, and I've got Hino stores, and I did have UDs, which is Nissan, but they quit selling in the United States. So we're just selling off what we got, and they're not going to put any more trucks in the United States. I was the largest Nissan dealer. We're not anymore. We are now, but we're not anymore because they're canceling all the franchises. We just got to get rid of what we got. Yes, sir.
Have you guys given any thoughts kind of expanding internationally?
I'm sorry?
Expanding
We looked internationally into Brazil and backed out. Navistar wanted us to go down there. We decided not to. They've got so much high taxes and some other things going on, we just decided to stay out for right now. Internationally, we probably would look at the right opportunity, but we're not looking now. Don't think we will for a while. Then we went down, it's been 8 months ago, and just backed out. Didn't want to do it. Sent our whole team down there for a week. I didn't go, but we sent a team down there. Yes, sir.
Obviously, you've been very successful. What do you think is your most, the quality that's helped you become so
I'm sorry?
successful? What is the biggest personality trait that you think that has helped you become so successful?
Well, number one, there's one thing I'll tell you. I got a rule at my office. If you're not on the phone, out of town, or in a meeting, you don't answer your own phone, I fire you. Because I answer my own phone. But that's the way you should treat customers. I get customers every time call me. I can't fix their problem, but I'll tell them. I just had one the other day. He was madder than a Jap. I said, hey, let me tell you, just so you'll know, just understand that I will get somebody to take care of the problem. And I'll also call you back once it's fixed. But I can't do it myself, but I'll get it done. And I think everybody should do that. And if you're available to people, just like I said, I look at every deal. I get people calling me deals all the time. I may look at them for 10 minutes, 3 hours, but it may take me a few weeks, you know, but I'm not going to, you can't make deals if you pass them up, you know. So it's the same way with dealing with customers or making your business successful. My door's always open. You come to my office, you can walk right in. All you got to do is tell the secretary, we've got, so you'll know, we have electronic locks on all the doors because I had a crazy woman come up here about 6 years ago and want to kill me. And she just is going to find out she just got out of the Looney Tunes, saw my name Rush and was looking for me. I wasn't there yet, but they got her, took her back to the Looney Tunes club. So we locked all the doors. So I put electronic locks on all the doors because I didn't want that to happen again. And she got in there and got a hold of one of my sons, but the guys got her off of him. So, you know. So anyway, but I just believe you just got to talk to everybody. I mean, that's just the way it is. And that's what I think makes me successful, at least. And I'm never going to lie to you. I'm always going to tell you the truth. You may not like what I got to say, but I'm going to tell you the facts. I'm going to tell you what it is. Yes, sir.
You've served in the capacity of president and CEO of this company before,
Mhm.
but now you're in a chairman of the board position. Is
Mhm.
that correct? What's the difference between those roles? Or what's
Well,
the-
I know about all the day-to-day things, not as much as I used to, but I don't get involved in the day-to-day mundane things that my son gets involved in. I know the big decisions, I'm involved in those and what we're buying or what we're gonna do, you follow me? But the data, this service manager or that parts manager, they're gonna switch, they're gonna move, I don't get involved in those kind of things. It's too big with that many people. But I'm involved in the major decisions. Any major decisions made, I know about. That doesn't mean I'm gonna second guess my son, because he's president and CEO, and I'll let him do what he wants to, but if I don't like it, I'm gonna tell him. Yes, sir.
How did it feel to see your son follow in your footsteps and take over CEO after you left?
Well, you gotta understand one thing. I think I said this earlier when people got here. There's no kid gonna screw up my business. So, once they come to work for me, they're gonna go through a 3-year hard training program, from picking parts out of the bins, from working in the shop. They're gonna do everything. And my son did it. Both my sons did it. One didn't stay. He went in the computer business, but he did for 7, 8 years. But Rusty, he started out busting tires and did that for like 8, 9 years, decided he wanted to get in the truck business. Or longer than that. He did it when he was 13 or 14. He didn't go on longer than that. He did it for about 10, 11 years. He was like, 25, 26 years old, 27 years old, 28. And I said, okay, you got a 3-year training program. What? I said, yeah, you're going to start all over. You're going out here in the tire business. Now I'm going to put you in the truck business. He didn't like it, but he did it. Best thing that ever happened to him. I mean it. I'm not going to give my company away to anybody. I'm sorry. Sorry. I don't let anybody screw it up. Sorry. He's done a fantastic job. Does a great job. As good or better than I did. So I have nothing to say. He may try to do something and I convince him not to. We might have some discussions about that, but not very often. I pretty well leave him alone.
Ladies.
Looks like you're being, no, yes, ma'am.
There we go.
I know your main focus is the truck business, but I was wondering why you decided to branch off into the farm and ranch business with D&Ds.
They call that Marvin's Folly. Cost me $10 million in 3 years, and I made a mistake, okay? And the board forgave me for it, and we went on about our business, okay? That's another mistake, but I had enough money to cover it, so it wasn't a problem. I didn't have it borrowed, I do now. I didn't before, but I didn't have anything borrowed for it, so it was just a mistake I made. I thought I always raised horses, so I thought it'd be fun to have a Western wear place. So let me tell you what, I didn't know anything about that, and I should never have gotten in. Okay. But you learn. Yes, sir.
So, what are the main risks that your company is exposed to? For example, how would the availability and price of oil and gas would affect the company's?
Well, of course, when the oil price goes up and the fuel goes up, normally they pass that surcharge on to the customer. So if that's the case, yeah, they don't like it, but they get most of their money back. They may not collect all of it, they collect 90% of it. Nobody likes the oil to go up because it affects everything else. So it's going to eventually affect the trucking business because people are not going to ship as much or not going to do this or whatever they're going to do. But as far as getting their money back from it, whatever they run, they're going to get most of it back. Did that answer your question? Okay.
Okay. Why don't you want to expand into the Northeast?
It's just so crowded up there, the streets are so narrow and what have you, that we just feel like we'd rather stay down here. And land is so expensive up there. It's very, very expensive in the Northeast. And I mean where you need to be. I'm talking about on an expressway or something. You can't be back in the Piney Woods and try to fix a truck coming down the highway. So we're nearly everywhere we are, we're right on the expressway. And not everywhere, but I'd say, I just opened a new facility in Phoenix that is the biggest one we ever opened. I had an old facility there and was fixing to build a new one, and I bought the land around our old facility. And my son was going, this has been 2.5 years ago, maybe 2 3/4 years ago. He was going out to Phoenix to meet the architects, and we were going to spend $10, $12, $13 more million on it. And he came in my office one day and he said, I'm going out there tomorrow, but the real estate agent called me, and the Freightliner dealer had built a brand new Taj Mahal a year and a half before. He said, the man can't afford it, and they got it on the market. He got $18.5 million in it. I said, what are they listed for? He said 14. I said, go buy it for 12, and we did. Now, we spent $2 million on it, but it's the most fabulous truck dealership you've ever seen. I don't have my office that nice. It's unbelievable. He's also in the jewelry business. He had a jewelry store right in it. But anyway, another story. But the Northeast is just, you asked me about the Northeast, didn't you? Yeah. It's just not where we really want to be. We might have to someday. We might buy a deal. He's got some up there, but we're not actively pursuing going to the Northeast. That'll be the later thing if we do it. We've got plenty of territory to work in. We're in, well, just so you know, we're in California, we're in Oregon, we're in Idaho, we're in Utah, we're in Arizona, we're in New Mexico, we're in Colorado, we're in, let's see, I missed something. No, we're in Texas, we're in Alabama, we're in Florida, we're in North Carolina, we're in Ohio. Am I missing anything? I don't know. I might have missed a state or two, but anyway, we're around quite a bit. We've got 130 locations. Our leasing company, and just a little bit about the leasing company, we've got, there's Hertz and there's Ryder and there's all these people. Well, each manufacturer has their own leasing division. That don't mean they do it, but you run it in their name. PACCAR has one called PAC Lease, and we're 3 times bigger than any PAC Lease dealer anywhere else. And then we have Ideal Lease is the Navstar division, and we've got 5,400 Class 8 trucks in the lease fleet, which is probably, I don't know, $300-400 million worth of trucks, okay? And they're leased. Most of them are rented, but we've got 37 or 8 locations for that. And I don't think they're all in that number because we got so many other locations that we got. We'll have maybe one store and have 4 locations, you follow me? We just discount it as one, so. Yes, sir?
You said when you were 40, you consider retiring. Now, do you ever see yourself retiring? Or?
Well, I'll tell you what, if my health holds out, they'll kill me out feet first. I don't plan on quitting. I don't have anything else to do. I've done this all my life. I mean, I got a big ranch in South Texas. Well, I'll go down there for 10 days a year, but I don't play golf. I don't have any hobbies. I used to like boats. I don't like that anymore. I can't ski, so I'm getting a little old for that. I'll be 75 in October, so things change as you get older, you know. Anybody else?
I know y'all have more questions.
I'm here to answer them. I told them I'd stay as long as you want me to. I ain't going to go back to the office today. I'm going straight back to my house.
Nathan, any questions? You said the market for the Class 8 trucks was about $200,000 a year?
Yeah, it's gone as low as 160, but and it's gone as high as 230, but about 200 is normal. That's U.S. That's not Canada. Okay.
I mean, do you see you guys taking a lot more of that market?
Well, we take about 5% of that market now, of Class 8 market, which is not too bad, really. And we take about 4% of the medium duty. We're big in the medium duty business, and that's the Hinos. Well, Peterbilt has a medium duty truck. International has a medium duty truck. Hinos, Ford. We do a big business with Ford. They love us. I mean, we're going to have probably 20 of those stores. I think we got 7 or 8 now, but they never had anybody sell trucks like we sell. I'm talking about me. I'm not talking about we sell pickups somewhere, not because we want to, because I have to. We're not a consumer person. We sell commercial vehicles is what we try to sell. But some of the preferred franchises have the medium light duty with it, and if they try to change it, they'll probably not even put the franchise back in, so that we have to take the light duties. But they don't code us to the light duties because we tell them we're not good at selling light duties. We're good at selling trucks that are commercial vehicles. Yes, sir.
You said that you like to look at a lot of deals.
Yes, sir.
You're constantly looking.
I look at all kinds of different
But
deals.
not necessarily acting on those deals. What are some of your criteria that may help you act on a deal?
Well, first, if it fits our mold, you know what I mean? And I don't mean just what we're in, but something similar to what we're in. I've got one Chevrolet car store in Elgin, Texas, just out of Austin. That's only because about a guy I've known. I bought it about a year ago and put him in it, and he's a great guy. He's 50-something, 51 years old. I've known him forever, and I'm going to let him buy me out. I just want him to be an entrepreneur like I was. So that's why I did it. I still go up there about every 10 days or a week to see what's going on and get the numbers and everything. But that doesn't have anything to do with Rush Enterprises. It says Rush Chevrolet, but it doesn't have anything to do with this parent company. But I look at everything. I've got people bring me all kinds of deals. Most of them I don't get involved because I learned that about the T&D business. I'm not getting something I don't know anything about. First time, shame on me, Sam. Second time, shame on me. Okay.
You mentioned a couple times that debt and leverage snagged you pretty good. How do you think about debt now? And
Don't have hardly any, so it's pretty good.
how do you manage debt going forward?
Well, we've been very fortunate the kind of money we've made. Today, just so you know, you can read it in our financial statements, but we don't have any lines of credit at the bank, okay? We do have a just raised it, $750 million floor plan line with GE, and that's when times really get good. We were at 600, we bought so many stores, we raised to 750. But we normally own between 250 and 300,000 of that, 300 million of that, because we have that kind of cash. And they pay us a quarter of a point less than we pay them. I can't get that return anywhere else. So we don't have to. They'd rather us not to. But other than that, we have, we might have some letters of credit for something out, small ones. But we have no lines of credit on parts or receivables or anything. We don't have any debt. We've been paying off our real estate. I'd say we don't start that about a year and a half ago. So we've probably got 60% of our real estate that we owe money on, but we'll put them on a 5-year term with a 15-year am. So we've been paying them off now as they come due in 5 years. I used to not do that. I did pump cash. I don't need to anymore. So we've been paying them off. And you see that if you look at it fast. If you read real close, you'll find it in the financial statement. But debt, you got to have debt to get started. Just be a little wiser than I was, like kissing every piece of paper somebody walked in that sells trucks, because they do come back, and they come back to haunt you, you know. Because it's usually when they come back, there's something wrong with them, you know. They can't pay for them, and they roar them out. So, you know, but today there's not much recourse paper. Most everything's non-recourse. Back in the 60s and 50s, and 60s, 70s, early 80s, everything was recourse. You did that or you didn't survive. Somebody else said, yes, sir.
Yeah, you mentioned how good it was for the company to go public for the employees, so they had equity.
Mm-hmm.
But do you get any pressure from shareholders or decisions, the way decisions are made change at all?
By giving stock options?
No, just being public in general and having shareholders.
Well, right now we just announced last month in February that we're making a 40 million buyback of stock. Okay, and we do that periodically when we got a lot of cash. So we're going to buy 40 million worth of shares between now and this next year. Okay, and all that does is let everybody else go up. You know what I mean? So you got to understand, we have two classes of stock. Okay, when I went public, this will take a second. You might like this. PACCAR said you have to keep 30% voting control. Okay, and the guy that used to run Peterbilt was a guy, PACCAR, which is Peterbilt and Kenworth, and DAF, was named Chuck Pickett. He was a good friend of mine. His son and I don't get along too good. Okay? But regardless of that, we went public, and so in excuse me, in '99 I sold some shares, and they bought them. Okay? They had to sell them because the law says they can't own them but a year. But that's another story. Okay? But I went to them and said, look, I'm down to about 34-5%, and I need you to roar that to something else. And the new guy said, I'm not going to do it. So I talked to my law firm, and here in San Antonio, they were a national law firm. And they said, well, you can issue two classes of stock, and they can't stop you. So if you see now, we have two classes, Class A and Class B. Class A has 1/20th of a vote. B has 1 vote. There's 10 million Bs out, and I have 4 million of them, okay? Or me and my family have 4 million of them, okay? So they told me I couldn't do it, and I said, sue me. Well, they couldn't stop it. The lawyers told me they couldn't do anything about it. They didn't like it. But now there's not enough B. I tell people, don't buy Bs, because you'll see they're always $4 or $5 cheaper than the A's, because they don't trade enough. So we had people buy 1 million shares of them, and it takes them 3 years to get out. It's not our fault. They just don't, there's not that big a float. But there's 25 or 30 million A's, so they trade every day. Well, we still got plenty of voting control, and now we can, whenever we sell shares, we now sell A's. And people would rather have the A's than the B's, because most people don't vote anyway. You know, most stockholders don't vote on you, unless they got a big block. They don't vote. They do it for investment, sell the stock, make money. That's what it's all about.
Sounds like you've got a tremendous amount of your net worth tied up in very economically cyclical businesses and capital-intensive businesses.
That's correct. Not anymore. Not capital intensive like they were, just because we got enough cash. But I mean, it paid off most of our debt.
I was going to say, can you elaborate on how you handle maybe some of your personal finances to diversify away investment-wise?
Oh, I've got a lot of bonds. I've got some stocks. I'll be honest with you, I had 50-something thousand. I bought about 55,000 shares of Parkars about 6 years ago, and I kept it 3 years and made $1 million on it. I bought another 55,000 shares, and I just sold it 2 weeks ago because it hadn't made a quarter. I finally got it back even, and I sold it just because I was tired of waiting on it, you know. But I don't invest much in stocks. It's mostly bonds, and mostly bonds, or corporate bonds, or muni bonds, you know, things like that. Now I own the bank. I don't have any debt on it, and it's probably worth, I don't know what it's worth. It's worth probably, my part of it's probably worth 14, 15 million, 16 million. I don't know what it's worth. I haven't sold it. So I don't know. We'll find out when somebody pays me. But then I've got the car dealership up there. It's paid for. I've got about $5 million in it. So, but you know, I've done pretty good. The Lord's been awful good to me.
Think you'll keep the electric bill paid for the week?
I think so. Even though it's very expensive where I live, let me tell you.
Well, we have one more question. Phil? Don't tell me you're brain dead now. Anybody?
Two of you. Go ahead.
You mentioned you didn't want to expand in Brazil because of the high tax rates.
Well, that's just one of the problems.
Okay, what about the U.S. and their tax rates?
Well, I don't like them, but I live here, so I got to pay them. What else am I going to do? I'm not going to Europe and maybe store some money over there. You know, I don't have any reason to go over there. You know. Yes, sir.
So the difference between Class A stock and Class B stock, I think, was Class A was
1/20th and B is 1 vote.
Why would someone want a stock with only 20th vote versus a full vote?
Because it's one that trades. I explained to you, there's 10 million Bs out. I owe 4 million of them. And a few other shareholders owe another couple of million. You buy 500,000 shares, it'll take you 2 years to get out because they don't trade that fast. But in the A's, there's nearly 30 million. So everybody trades. You've got 1 million shares, you can sell them in 3 days or 4 days, but you can't do that with the Bs. And the only reason that is because I'm required to keep 30% voting control, so I have to, you know. They put that monkey on my back, I didn't.
Anything else? I will give Mr. Rush a big round of applause.
Thank you.
Students at TLU engage in high-impact educational experiences that include civic engagement, aesthetic expression, critical thinking, and a focus on intercultural knowledge in a community that welcomes the interplay of faith and reason.